How are y'all?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good. Good. All right. So contract to close. I'm probably not going to sit down. I'm probably just going to write on the board. Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Contract to close is basically from the time you have it under contract, so you've already negotiated everything, it's under contract, up until the day of closing, and plus a little bit beyond, because there's a couple things you want to kind of follow up on, because you want to try to keep people in your pocket. Okay. So the first thing you want to do, very first thing you want to do once you're under contract is load all of your signed documents into Command in your opportunity for that client and submit them to the MCA for approval. So number one, submit your docs. You want to do this in the very beginning because once the process kind of gets going, you'll get busy and forget to go back. And then you'll go to closing and come back with a check and not be able to get paid because none of your stuff was submitted. You'll have to wait a couple of days to get paid. So if you do it first thing out of the gate, you know it's approved, so that when you come to load your closing documents and submit those, that's the only thing that has to be checked is just your closing docs. And you can get paid a lot of times the same day, depending on what time your closing is. So submit your docs. You also want to do the commissions tab. So this is part of Command in the opportunity, and that is going to tell Carson what to pay you. So that's going to include if you're on a team, the team split, if it's a referral from another agent, the referral, what the commission percentage is. So Carson knows exactly what to pay you. If you're capped, if you're not capped, if you're capped on royalty, but not on company dollar, it keeps track of all of it. So submit that at the same time you submit this, because Carson also runs reports and he has to report to JD what's coming up. So if you don't submit this and he doesn't know it's coming up, then he can't report that. And it looks like our numbers are lower than what they actually are. So do everything right up front. Okay. If you're on the buy side, the second thing you're going to do is have your buyer schedule a home inspection. Now, you can send them names of inspectors. You want to send at least 3 or 4. And I usually just text them to them and say, call, see what they're charging. Hey, you're good. See when they're available, because there are contingency deadlines in the contract. So you want to make sure they know I have to have this inspection done by this date. So that when they're calling, if the inspector says, well, I'm 2 weeks out, then they know if that's too late or not. So just kind of give them a heads up. Make sure you call all 3 of them if you want to, see who can do it faster, because you're not going to send them anybody that's not going to do a good job. So you already know they're going to be good people. So schedule the home inspection and then let the listing agent know when the inspection is, even if the home is vacant. Notify. So notify the listing agent. And the inspector is going to need all of the utilities on. So usually all the utilities are on, except the gas. Sometimes they turn it off if the house is vacant. So the gas needs to be turned on just for the inspection, and then they can go back and turn it back off. But it needs to be on, so if there's a fireplace or stove that runs on gas, it can be inspected. So just notify the listing agent. On the sell side, you're going to notify the seller of when the inspection is, even if it's a vacant house. Just because the house is vacant, nobody's living in it, doesn't mean you don't need to communicate everything along the way with your seller. It's their house, not yours. So notify the seller of when the inspection is going to be, confirm with them that all the utilities are on, and just let them know. You'll follow up with them after the inspection, let them know how it went, which is the next step. Let's spell things correctly. I'm going to negotiate repairs. So there may not be any repairs to negotiate, but if there are, this is the point you do it. So you'll get as the buyer, agent, you'll get the inspection report from the inspector, and the buyers will get the report as well. You go through it. You're really only looking for like latent defects, health and safety type stuff. You're not looking for cosmetic. A paint chip is not something that needs to be repaired. Windows need to open in every room, at least one window in every room for safety. All the appliances need to work. The HVAC needs to work. Water heater needs to work. No leaks in the roof or in the plumbing, things like that. So major things that deal with the major components of the house. A door squeaking, it's not, they can get over it. So on both sides, you're going to negotiate. So you'll do this on an addendum, just addendum to the purchase agreement. And there's some verbiage that you'll want to put on that. One thing that you'll want to put, and I can send this to you guys, if you put your email on the sign-in sheet, I'll email it to you. Some verbiage you'll want to put, and it basically says, home inspection contingencies hereby removed from the contract, given the following items are repaired or replaced as requested. Also, anything involving electrical, plumbing, or roofing needs to be done by a licensed and insured contractor in that field. And then the third thing is that the buyer gives the seller permission to view the entire report. So go ahead and have that in there, because if the buyer does not give the seller permission, then the seller can't view it to know exactly what needs to be fixed, because it's the buyer's report, they paid for it, they own it, so they have to give permission. So if you go ahead and put it in the addendum and they sign it, then there's your permission to show the entire report of the seller. So I'll send y'all that. Okay, so once you've negotiated, now you have an addendum, so you want to load that addendum into Command and submit again. Load addendum and submit. Anytime you put a new document in Command, the Submit to MC button will pop up green again. So then you just hit it and it'll resubmit that one document for approval. And it'll just kind of keep your whole file up to date. All right, after the inspection comes the appraisal. So on the buy side, you'll want to call the lender and say, hey, we're through the inspection contingency, we're ready for the appraisal, because the lender is not going to order the appraisal until they know that that contingency is through, because they don't want to waste the buyer's money paying for an appraisal if it doesn't make it through the inspection. So you have to let them know, we're done with this, we're ready for the appraisal, go ahead and order it. On the sell side, you'll want to let the seller know you're through the inspection contingency, the appraisal is being ordered, I'll let you know when it's scheduled. Just always communicate every step of the way. So once the appraisal is done, if the appraisal comes back at value or above value with no repairs requested, you're good. On to the next step, nothing to do. If it comes back below value and or asking for repairs, which you usually see in a VA or a USDA loan, if the house is not in fantastic condition, then you have to do another addendum to negotiate again. So, negotiate if needed. So you'll either negotiate the price down to the appraised amount, because the lender is not going to finance an amount over what the house is worth. So the seller either needs to come down, or the buyer is going to have to bring the difference in cash to closing as part of their closing costs to cover the gap. So negotiate if needed. If there's repairs, you negotiate it the same way you did the inspection stuff. It may be things like, I mentioned the windows. One window in every room has to be able to open for safety. So in really old homes where they've painted the windows because they're wood, they paint them shut and now the windows don't open. They have to fix that. The windows have to be able to open. If there's a shed out back that has power running to it and it wasn't done right or something like that, that might be flagged on an appraisal. So it'll say as is, or it'll say fix the following things. So you'll know.
Is there any way to like negotiate with the appraisal company about repairs needed, or no, it's just as
Good
is?
luck.
Okay.
Yeah. The repairs for sure not, because they go by a book on those things. The value is more of an opinion. So you can try to get
the
them
value
to
is
change.
over what we're asking, but we have a lot of repairs that need to be done on one of them.
Yeah. Is there anything that seems like crazy?
Like the windowsill, like a little piece of wood that's coming off a little bit, needs to be nailed up, and then some paint on the outside of the house.
Yeah, and that's paint on the outside of the house?
It's paint on the window frame for marketing purposes, what they wrote on there.
For marketing purposes?
Yeah.
So, is it an older home? How old is it?
Unknown.
Oh, okay, so yeah, it's older. So they may have an issue with lead paint. If it's wooden windows and they've been painted and it kind of looks chippy or flaky.
It looks like it's metal underneath it. Like underneath this vinyl siding and stuff on the outside that's covering up.
They want them to paint the vinyl on the outside of the house.
Yeah, it was like the frame, the vinyl frame. Yeah.
Oh.
It's peeling off a little bit and they want it to be repainted from the appraisal company.
They may be worried about lead-based paint, just if it's super old. Yeah, that's a little strange. You can always ask them to show you like where in their book it is that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Appraisers do not like to be argued with.
Yeah.
So you probably get pushback. Sometimes it's just not even worth the argument. But I mean, you can always ask if it's something that seems outrageous. So yeah, but they don't like to be argued with. So then if you did have to negotiate, just put that addendum back into command again and resubmit your opportunity. Okay, next. After the appraisal, let me back up. When you're submitting docs, you're going to also email the contract to the lender and the title company. So this tells the lender that they need to go ahead and contact the buyer to actually make application for the mortgage. And it tells the title company that they're going to have to pull clear title policy and do title research on the contract. So your title company may not do anything until you go back and tell them, hey, we're through the inspection and appraisal phase, just moving on, giving you an update. They may not do anything until then because it only takes a couple weeks to do their part. But you want them to go ahead and have a heads up that it's coming down the pipe. So go ahead and email it to the lender and the title company. With that, we send what we call a title work order, and it's basically a summary of everything on one page. So it has contact information for both agents and both the buyer and the seller. It has what the commission is. It has who the title company is, who the lender is, and contact information for both. The terms of the contract, so purchase price, if there's a home warranty, if it's a Fairhope single tax, all of that stuff. Closing date, earnest money, and who's holding the earnest money. It's basically a one-page summary of the contract, as well as all the contact information for the parties. So submit that with the contract, and it really helps to speed things up. So,
Sarah,
contract.
Sarah, is that a form that's in DocuSign or in Command, or is that a form that you just put together for your team?
That's a form I put together for my team.
Okay. Can you share that along with the other stuff?
Sure.
You're awesome.
Why not? Yeah, so submit that. And there's now in Command, they put something new for a sheet for contact information. Just put that sheet in that slot because it's got contact information. So you don't have to have a separate whatever the Don wants. Okay, after the appraisal, it's kind of a waiting game. So on the buy side, you're going to inform your buyers to cooperate. So at this point, the lender and the underwriter and everybody are going to be asking them for a ton of information. So, and it may seem like they're asking them for information that they've already sent them. Send it again. It doesn't matter. For whatever reason, they need it again. They need a fresh date on it, or they need an updated bank statement or something like that. Just send it again. So they just need to know to get it to them as quickly as possible, because the delay is usually right here when the lender is waiting for the buyer to send stuff. So right here, you can call the lender at least once a week, check in. Hey, are you waiting on anything? Is there anything I can help get faster? Because a lot of times your client will communicate with you faster than they will the lender. So just kind of be that extra point of contact for the lender and make sure that they're getting what they need in a timely manner. Same thing with the title company, check in at least once a week. How's it going with the title pull? Lender says we're still on track. Are y'all good? You could even go ahead and preliminarily schedule a closing date if you wanted to, if everything looks like it's on track. We try to do that probably about a week in advance, schedule the closing dates. So yeah, just inform your buyers to cooperate, inform the sellers that now we're waiting, but if there were any repairs to be done, keep doing those, because they really have until like the day before closing to get all those repairs done, unless there's something else agreed upon in the contract. So while the lender's doing their stuff, the seller's making repairs. So everybody just needs to hold their horses and wait for time to go by.
Sarah, quick question. I know Keller Williams Mortgage and Fairway Mortgage have the app. So once you've shared that, they send you notifications along the way for notice. Do you know, does title company, Anchor Title, or any of those guys have similar so you can track the progress?
Some of them do. I know First Bank and Homefront Mortgage also have those. I'm trying to think of a title company that would. If anybody would, it would be Anchor.
Okay, but you just pick up the phone?
Yeah, I don't know for sure on that.
Okay.
Because I always just call and ask. So I don't know for sure. Okay. So once we're through all of this, the lender has given us the, clear to close. The lender has to send the closing disclosure 3 days before to the buyer. 3 days prior to closing. The lender will send the CD to the buyer. The lender will not send you the CD. They can't legally send you the CD, even though the contract says that the buyer gives permission, they still won't do it. So you have to get that from your buyer so that you can look over it and make sure nothing looks fishy. The buyer has to sign it. So if the lender sends it to them 4 days before closing and the buyer doesn't sign it until 2 days before closing, your closing's delayed because they have to legally have 3 days. So knowing when this gets sent to them and making sure they sign it is important if you want to stay on track.
What document was that, Sarah?
That's this, it's called the CD, the closing disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
And those are not final numbers. It's important to let them know these are not the final numbers, but this is as close as it's going to get until the lender balances their numbers with the title company. So they could change a little bit on either side, the buyer or the seller side, depending on how it balances with the title company. They just need to sign it.
The final numbers really only show up at closing, right?
Yeah.
Because I've had it change
like
for myself even.
Up until like an hour before closing, they can
I sat
change.
down and been like, whoa, what just happened?
Exactly. Yeah. And hopefully they don't change very much.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they'll get the commission wrong. And so the number changes on the seller side, or they'll get the tax prorations wrong. So the number's wrong on the buyer side. So it doesn't usually change a ton, but it's just good to kind of set that expectation. Like this could change. This is still just an estimate, but please sign it. Okay. So then you're going to schedule your final walkthrough. And this can be the day before closing. It can be the day of closing. The challenge with the day of closing is that if there's something wrong, there's very little time for it to be fixed before closing. So your buyer's either going to have to maybe ask the sellers to give them a check, for $500 or whatever it is at closing to fix whatever's wrong, or say the house was supposed to be professionally cleaned and it wasn't. Well, you've got an hour or two to get a cleaner in there or delay closing. So it's very challenging to do it the day of closing unless like we've been checking on this consistently the whole time. Everything's good. No repairs were asked for, so you're not really checking anything like that. You're just making sure when they moved everything out, they didn't put a huge gouge in the floor or the wall or something like that, or break a window. So you're really just kind of double checking to make sure the house is in the condition that's expected.
Sarah,
yeah.
If it's a new construction, is there a preliminary walkthrough, or is there only the final walkthrough?
No, you'll have a few walkthroughs with a new construction. So,
okay.
And those will be scheduled by the builder. You can go to those, of course, and you should, but they'll be scheduled by them. So you'll do like a first walkthrough. And if you're doing a home inspection on a new construction, which I highly recommend, then the home inspection has to be done before the first walkthrough so that the foreman can have the report to use in simultaneously with the walkthrough. So they'll fix things from the report and they'll fix things you find in the house just walking through. But that has to be done first. And then you'll have another final walkthrough prior to closing to make sure everything on the list that you made with the foreman while you were walking through was taken care of.
Okay, so now, was the first walkthrough generally done before or after paint?
After.
Okay. Yeah,
after paint. Because that's one of the big things that you mark up is where things need to be repainted. D.R. Horton is notorious for not completing the list prior to closing. They will say they're going to get it done, and a lot of times they get it done while you're in closing, because usually it's little stuff and they can just pull somebody from the house next door to come and fix it real quick while you're at closing. But it's very, very stressful on the buyers when they go to a final walkthrough and they see 5 out of 10 items not taken care of, and they're expected to go sign all these closing documents for a house that's not completed. They can delay closing. D.R. Horton is going to push for them to go ahead and do closing, and they'll say, we'll come back and fix it next week. Your buyers can delay closing if they absolutely want to, because D.R. Horton will take advantage of that all day long. They'll never call you back after closing. They won't answer their phones if you call them. Like it's really stressful and horrible. So if your buyers are adamant, then just delay closing for a day. Say, hey, get this stuff in here, fix today, and we'll close tomorrow morning. No big deal. And they'll fight you on it, but that's your buyer's right because they didn't hold up their end of the bargain to get it all done. So your final walkthrough, and then you're going to go to closing. So to closing, you don't really need to take anything with you unless you just want to take a copy of the contract or whatever. I'll take the file with me usually, just in case, but you don't really need to take the earnest money or anything like that, because they'll just take the earnest money out of your commission if we're the ones holding it. So you got to make sure they get all the keys at the final walkthrough. If you're on the buyer side, ask the listing agent, hey, do you mind if I take the key out of the lockbox to take to closing? Don't give it to the buyer yet because it's not their home yet, but hold on to it. Just always get that permission from the listing agent. And then on the selling side, you do want to make sure you tell your sellers to bring any keys, bring any garage door openers, any remote controls to the fireplace or fans or TVs that were left behind or something like that. Either leave it on the kitchen counter or bring it to closing. Including if there's a shed and a lock on the shed, they need to bring the key to that lock. So just kind of anything you can, trying to think of other scenarios. Any property belonging to the home needs to either be left in the home or brought to closing. Manuals for the appliances, things like that. Yep. Oh, forgot a big one right here. When they get this CD, this 3 days prior, they can go ahead and transfer utilities. That includes trash as well. So you'll get who the utility companies are from the listing agent. If you are the listing agent, just share that information with the buyer's agent. The sellers have to leave the power and water and everything on through closing so that you can do that final walkthrough and that kind of thing. You have to leave everything on through closing. So say you're closing Wednesday at noon. The buyers need to have the utilities transferred into their name on Wednesday, because you don't know what time the utility company is going to go out and turn it off or whatever. So they need to have it transferred into their name on Wednesday. The sellers really should call and say, hey, transfer it out of our name on Thursday, just so that there's no gap. You'd rather it overlap and it transfer instead of turn off and have to be turned back on. The amount of money that that's going to cost either party is maybe $4. Like, it's not a big deal. Unless there's a water leak, which has happened. So just remind them to transfer the utilities into their names. Some of the companies you do have to go in person. Some of them require a deposit. Most of them you can do online. I think Baldwin EMC, you have to go in person after closing with the settlement statement showing that you actually purchased the property on that day. But they can call and get that information and they know what to do. So make sure you remember to tell them that. So at closing, you're going to leave, hopefully, as long as everybody has signed and the funds are there on time, perfect scenario. At closing, you're going to leave with the closing documents that you'll put into command and a check. Cross-reference that check with the contract and make sure it's right before you leave the title company. So if we're holding earnest money, you'll subtract the earnest money amount from the check because Carson will just contribute the earnest money to your check. Does that make sense? So instead of you taking a check from the escrow account to the title company and then them cutting you a whole check, they just withhold that money from your check because we already have it in our account. So, okay, so you'll leave with docs and a check, make sure the number's right, and then you'll come back to the office and scan it all in. Scan it into your email, save it to your opportunity, and submit the file. Give Carson the original copy of the check. He doesn't need the original copies of the documents, just hand him the check. You can write your name on the bottom of the, like on the stub part of the check, just so he knows faster who it goes to. They should have the address of the property on them, but if they don't, you can write that on there too. Submit your docs and then you should get paid fairly quickly as long as you've submitted everything along the way. All right, that was a lot really fast. So what do I need to go back over and what questions do you have?
So Sarah. Yep. Fairhope single tax. Scheduling the orientation or what, I guess it's called an orientation, is that right?
Yeah, so Fairhope single tax, that adds a little step. So
they still do that orientation?
Yes, and charge you an additional $300. So if the property is in Fairhope single tax, the listing agent has to fill out a form that's on their website, and it includes the buyer and seller contact information. If it's going to be a mail out closing, which they hate mail out closings, when the contract is supposed to close, you have to include a copy of the contract. They're no longer requiring appraisals, so that helps a lot. And you have to submit all of that to them like immediately, like right here. Here, I'll put that on here.
It was right here. Where did you point?
Number one.
Okay.
Like when you send in everything to title and lender, go ahead and send it to Fairhope single tax with their document also. From there, they'll make a file and then they will send out an email to all parties, all attached on the same email saying, we've created your file. Your orientation needs to be from between this date and this date. Buyer needs to call to schedule that. The seller needs to come and sign the endorsement after that between this date and this date, and you can close on this date. You cannot close prior to the date that they tell you you can close. So don't wait to send them their document. If you wait until here to send them their document, they may give you a closing date that's past the contract closing date. So send it immediately and let them do their processes. And then when you get that email, make sure you tell your buyer you need to call, here's the number, schedule your orientation, and be prepared to write a check for $300 that day to Fairhope single tax.
The listing agent or the listing?
The buyer.
The buyer, right? Okay.
Yeah. If the property is Fairhope single tax, make sure you include that $300 in your estimated closing costs. Even though it's an upfront fee, they need to know it's a fee because it's different from any other property. So $300 is a big deal to some people. So if they're going to have to pay $500 for an inspection, $500 for an appraisal, and $300 for the Fairhope single tax, you want to know that you had already told them that up front. So if it becomes an issue later, you can go back and say, okay, see where we talked about this. This is that fee. Now it's coming up and it's not on you. So include that in your estimated. Yeah, good question, Jason. Thank you. What else? Nothing? Yeah, it's a long process, but it's pretty easy once you do it a few times and get the hang of it. Make sure you know when garbage day is, so that you can tell them. That's one of the things that people forget about a lot. Like, we don't know when to put our garbage out. Load your documents right away. It does not matter how many addendums you do as many as you need to do. You can have 25 addendums in there. As long as everything's documented and signed off on, put them in there and submit them. It doesn't matter how many there are. Check your command opportunity periodically, because if there's something wrong with the documents, Danita will send it back and put a note like, hey, you forgot this initial here or whatever, so that you can get it fixed right away. So it's not an issue after closing, delaying your check. So go in there and check periodically. We do have people in the office that will do this whole process for you, called transaction coordinators. I have one, and she's happy to help any of you with yours. I know the office has one as well. I don't remember her name though. They get paid off of the commission, so you don't even see it. Carson writes them a check just like he writes you a check. So you don't even really see it, and they'll take care of all these steps for you. They'll fill out the title work order, send everything to whoever needs to get it, take care of the single tax stuff. You do still need to be in contact with your client, of course, but it's somebody to kind of do the paperwork side of it.
Is that a flat fee?
Mm-hmm. Yep, flat fee. You literally, I don't see it. It comes out of the check before I get my check. So super easy, very, very worth it. Especially
what does that generally cost?
Going at one time. Say it again.
How much does that generally cost?
They all charge something a little different. So I would call them and see. Tiffany does all of ours on our team, so she might charge somebody something different for just, you know, one here, one there, than she does all of ours. So I would call, you're welcome to call her or email her or text her and just say, hey, how much would you charge me to do TC stuff?
Who was that?
Yeah.
Who was that, Sarah?
Tiffany Wooten, my transaction coordinator.
Oh, she's on your team. Okay.
Yeah, but she's for hire. You can still use her.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You had said there's
somebody,
one for the office, though. I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned that before.
Yeah, there is. I don't remember what her name is, though.
Brooklyn
Melissa.
Brooklyn Bell.
Is Brooklyn still the TC for the office? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Brooklyn. Thank you.
Never heard that name. Okay.
It is good to know how to,
So that's why you came to that.
yeah. It is good to know how to do the process, but if you don't want to, if you're just not somebody that's wanting to do paperwork, then just pass it off and go sell another house in the meantime.
So you just like email it over, or you say pass it off?
Yep. I email her the contract and she puts it all in command, fills out the title work order. It is totally worth
That's
it.
worth a lot of money.
It is. It really is. Especially, I mean, on a $8,000 commission check, paying somebody a few $100s or a couple $100s or whatever, it's like,
Yeah.
God, just to alleviate that stress.
In the beginning, I think it's good to do it yourself to learn it.
Yeah,
Sometimes it won't take long for me to be like,
I'm done. Over it. Yeah, it's good to know how to do it and to do it a few times, but feel free to pass it off if you want to, because there are people that will do it for you. What else? That's a lot of information really fast. Like it's not even 10 o'clock. Okay. Go sell houses.
I do have a question. How many delays do you experience due to weather?
New construction has weather delays always. Just count on it. Always. The only other time is if a hurricane comes in. Okay, that's another thing I need to add to the list. Hurricane. So somewhere around here, yeah. So when you send them names for inspectors, go ahead and send them names for insurance people as well, because they need to start shopping insurance, because their lender is going to need to know who the insurance company is that they want to use, so that they can create their escrow account off of that. You don't need, you can tell them, just let me know who you choose, but the lender is really who needs to know who they choose. And the lender will call the insurance company and get their policy details and all that stuff. They just need to sign to bind it. So where weather comes into play with insurance, which is why that triggered my memory, is when we have a named storm in the Gulf, insurance shuts down. They go home. You can't get them on the phone, and they do not write policies. So if you've got somebody that's still shopping insurance and they're supposed to close in a week and a half or whatever, and we've got a storm in the Gulf, they can't get insurance, they can't get a loan, and it's going to delay it. So the sooner they can get on that and get it signed and bound, once it's bound, they're fine. But if they're still shopping it and they haven't signed yet, then they shut down, they're screwed. So yeah, that'll cause delays for sure. But with new construction, I mean, we have rain every day. That causes delays all the time. So, I mean, it's me about to call GSLD.
So, Sarah, I'm trying to, I have a house for sale, my own house, and that's a Fairhope City, Fairhope single tax. I'm on your website, but I don't see any forms. Do we have access to that form?
Yeah, there should be a tab up at the top that says forms or something like that.
Not even under links. And you go to, I click, they have a link and then real estate, and it just takes me to nothing.
Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. Yes. Forms, transfers, and info.
Wait a minute. I've got a different homepage. What am I looking at? I'm looking at something different, I guess.
FairhopeSingleTax.com.
Yeah.
And then forms, transfer info there. And then you just scroll down and your forms are here. So this lease.
Okay, I'm now where you're at. Okay. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was on the wrong.
You've got the procedures here, and then you've got the letter form here. So you'll just print this out, fill it out. You can sign it, signature of seller or seller's agent. So you can sign it as the seller's agent if you don't want to deal with having to get your seller to sign it.
Well, it would be me in my case.
Yeah. Just make sure that's all filled out, and then just send it over to them with the contract.
All right, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Are you available this afternoon or tomorrow for 10 minutes?
Tomorrow would be better.
Okay. What time?
Morning.
9 a.m., 10 a.m.?
10.
Okay. I'll send you a calendar invite. I just need a few minutes of your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I get to my calendar and see that's wrong, I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'm going off of memory here.
Just make a recommendation. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What else? I keep thinking of more stuff as y'all ask questions, so ask more questions.
Well, you had asked for some recommendations on other classes. Is that just down the road? Because that's one of the things I wanted to sit with you on. I haven't done an MLS. I need to speak to Danita about this particular one because it's a for sale by owner mine, and I'm selling it to my renter. So I think I need to just do a one-time show and something.
Yeah, that's what I would do, a one-time show and sell.
Okay. That's what I said. Hopefully it's a 10-minute conversation.
That's an easy one.
Okay.
Can you bullet point the forms that will need to be submitted? Just the forms, like not necessarily when,
Yeah.
but just.
I'll show you where you can find them. If I can remember my login, everybody say a prayer.
It's all.
Your command login?
Yeah. I have it saved on my computer, so I never remember it. Okay, I don't know why I'm thinking so long. No, okay. In your, when you go to command, you go to your opportunities. Wait here. All right, here we go. So you're in command. You come over here to opportunities. The little handshake. You've got all your buying and selling opportunities. We'll just say it's on the buy side. Just gonna click on a random one. Documents right here. Oh. This tells you all the forms you need. So you've got your MLS printout, your customer contact, your recap, your buyer agency, so they're all in there. It tells you if they're required or conditionally required or optional or whatever. So
Teach the class? Mine are open back here?
Yeah, you are, as usual. So then you would just add file, upload it, and then the submit to MC button right here, it'll pop back up green when you add something to kind of trigger you to resubmit it. Yeah. They're all in there.
I'm gonna do this anyway. I wanted to show that. I figured you appreciate that.
Oh my God.
Hey,
Nice.
This is too good not to
Nice
share.
word
Sorry.
usage. Psalm. Yeah. Good one.
Oh my word.
But,
Okay, I'll fall back in my hole.
Okay, what else? Anything else you want to talk about? Not relating to contract close? We can talk about one-time show and sales if y'all want to know the info also.
Bring it, bring whatever.
All right, Jason, you ready?
Oh, I'm here.
Oh.
You want to talk about one-time show and sales while everybody's here so everybody can hear it?
If you're doing it from the shared screen, that way I can see it.
I can try.
Awesome.
What are you wanting, the form?
Well, no, I guess it's the MLS, how to post it in MLS.
MLS, okay.
So I do it and then put pending. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, you'll put it pending. See if I remember this password. I'm not gonna remember it. I know I'm not gonna remember it. Let's see if I can hook this up.
Next, talk to me about your tablet. How's that working out?
It's all right. I'll definitely go with the MacBook.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I just did a few more things on there.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, I think it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Gotta think between this or Mac. It's the same price, but
Okay.
Mac is better. Or a laptop, not a Chromebook.
No.
Don't use a Chromebook.
Camera.
You just take your photos and stuff with that? Or do you use your phone?
Oh no, I've got cameras and stuff like that. And I edited it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what this is for. This Photoshop.
Did you get an editing program or did it come on it?
No, I bought it. Yeah. Photoshop and Lightroom. That where it's at.
Okay. Can you see me, Jason? Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. Oh, other mouse. All right, Paragon. Okay. There's a form called one-time show and sell. And that is basically your listing agreement. So then in Paragon, you're going to go to your listings, and we're going to do a Toolbox Tuesday on how to input listings too. I think it's the first Tuesday or the 7th or whatever. So just look for that. So you'll do add new listing, residential. You'll do all this stuff. I'm just going to pull one up with it.
Sarah, what's showing is just your sign in to Baldwin Realtors. Are you sharing a screen?
The screen, it's on HDMI.
Oh, yeah. I switched screens. Okay, hang on. Let me go back. That's not gonna work. This one? This one? Okay. All right. Oh my gosh. It's a miracle. I'm 6 slow. You should, did you find the one-time show and sell form in commands or in the forms under my KW? Jason?
Sorry, Sarah, what was that?
Okay, did you find the one-time show and sell form?
No, I had actually done a full listing agreement and submitted it to Danita a few days, actually last week. So I'll check it out though.
Okay.
So it's a simplified listing agreement, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically like if you're selling a for sale by owner. So okay. What you would do in your listing, once you've got it all inputted and everything, you would just, instead of hitting active, you would do pending. And then in the remarks at the very front of your, if you don't even have to enter remarks if you don't want to, but in your remarks, you would say one-time show and sell listed for comp purposes only, so that you're listing it, you get the numbers as the agent, and appraisers can use it as a comp because now all the information's in there. So you still want it to be really accurate as far as the size and things like that, and the features. You can put description in there if you want to, like if you've got a brand new roof and you want that taken into account for other houses for comps, you can put that in there, but you don't have to go through a whole description thing if you don't want to. Also, in agent remarks, you want to make sure you say seller is licensed realtor in the state of Alabama and disclose that. There's another part that you have to disclose, agent disclosure, this one right here. You want to put seller licensed real estate agent under agent disclosure. You good?
Yeah, I got that part. It's the listing, just starting the listing in general. I haven't even done yet. So.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's a whole nother question. All right. So you'll go under listings. You'll go under add listing, residential single family. And then it's going to ask you to start with the tax information. So you'll just enter the tax, whatever you can. You don't have to enter all of this. You can just do Baldwin County and then the street name and number, and it should pull it up. So you select the one that's the right one in case there's some that are very similar. and then it'll autofill a bunch of the tax information. Like it'll autofill your square footage and your date built and your lot size and things like that, but you'll want to check and make sure that it's all right.
So I did that, or I tried to do that, but it said property could not be found. And that's why I wasn't sure if I was doing something wrong.
What's the address?
330 Majestic Beauty. And it could have been a day that MLS was down. I don't know, but I could get, mine just said 0 and could not be found.
Is it that one?
Yeah, I think I was just catching it on a really bad day.
So when you enter the street name, just enter Majestic. Like don't do Majestic Beauty or Majestic Beauty Drive or whatever, just do Majestic.
That might have been what I was doing wrong.
Yeah, if you keep it more simple, then you'll get better results. Same thing when you're doing searches on the MLS, don't put drive or ave or street, just do the name.
It's horrible.
Okay.
It is, it's horrible. If you put the drive or ave or whatever, it will not pull anything up.
Yeah. Now, one thing I've been noticing in these subdivision lots is the lot sizes are coming up like 2 acres, and you know they're nowhere near 2 acres. So
yeah, that's why you got to double check all the info and change it where needed. You should be able to change it, those fields.
Okay. So let me do that, and can you start it and then put it on hold?
Yeah. Yeah. So it has this thing called partial listings. So when you go to save it, you'll hit save as partial instead of save.
Okay.
And then you can come back to it just by clicking on your listings and then clicking on partials right here under maintain. And it'll pull up any listings that you have partial.
Okay.
Like these are our coming soon listings that we haven't listed yet, but we've gone ahead and started the process. So it's a lot easier later.
All right. So I'll send you an invite for 10 o'clock. I'll have all that done. And if you can just, before I hit send and all that stuff, I just get your professional eyes on it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. What else? Welcome.
Thank you. I came because Max is going to help me with doing a listing.
Awesome.
But he said if I could get her early, just kind of get her earlier. That's a real good class.
Yeah. Good. What else? What else you want to know? Doesn't have to be on topic. You got me for 8 more minutes.
I've got an off-topic question that I've noticed and I'm just curious about. So when you're going MLS and looking at properties and it gives you the commission for broker commission, and there's so many different ones in there now.
Yeah.
But there's the 2.4s and the 2.6s and 3 and whatever. Do you know if when you're writing an offer, if you can add in comments 50% commission paid must be paid or anything like that to assure that it's going to be 50-50 because you don't know what the listing agreement is.
You for sure cannot put it in the contract. That is part of their listing agreement contract, cannot be part of a sales contract.
So
you can call them.
Not the offer though. I'm gonna put in the offer.
Yeah, don't put it in
You can't put that in the offer.
You can call the listing agent and say, hey, would I see that this is a 2.4 commission? Is that a 50-50 split? And if not, would you be willing to split 50-50 with me? Some offices have already done a reciprocal agreement with us. Some have not. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, no problem. Other times they'll say,
and it might be 50%, but you just don't know.
You don't know. The 2.4s, I can almost guarantee you are not 50-50.
Yeah, so.
The 2s are probably not 50-50 either. That's probably a 5%, you're getting 2 and they're getting 3. The 2.4s, they're getting 3.6.
Yeah, that's
you see a 3%, it's probably a 50-50. Yeah. I do 50-50 on all of mine. So that's something I tell them is that I split 50-50 on every house I ever sell. You'll never even have to ask me for a 50-50. Would you mind reciprocating and doing the same for me when you sell your properties? Sometimes they'll say I need to ask my broker and whatever, but I mean, you just have to ask.
I was curious about
that. Commissions can't be in a contract because the listing agent and selling agent are not party to the contract. It's just between the buyer and seller. So our commissions or negotiating commissions or whatever can't be a part of the contract. It has to be on the side.
It's just on the listing agreement,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't see the
Right.
buyer.
Right. Yeah, it's a little tricky.
Okay.
Yeah, really trust each other.
Well, I was talking to an agent one time, that been an agent for a long time, and he was saying, as long as you didn't put in comments the actual commission split, if you just put 50-50, that somehow it was legal or something. Whatever.
If you put,
But I see what you're saying. That's not.
yeah, in the offer you can. I don't know about putting it in agent remarks on your listing. You might be able to do that. I don't know.
So basically just call them and say, are you good with 50-50?
And then you just take their word for it. Are you signing something on that?
So
That's what
I
I'm
would
saying.
follow it up with an email and say, hey, per our conversation on the phone,
Yeah.
just
So you
as
have
a
some kind of
reminder,
record
yeah,
of
and
this.
then make sure they reply to it. Yep, we're good or
Or you can
whatever.
probably make up your own little thing between.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds
For
of
them to sign.
laws regarding commissions and anti-trusts and things like that that
Yeah,
we have to be
they're not gonna be
careful
able to
of.
sign something
Yeah,
since they wrote it up, so.
yeah, good question. Well, 4 minutes. Anything else on Jessica P, Patty, Jason, anybody else?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Sarah, just to clarify, your email is, do you have a Keller Williams email? Because I went to your website and it was just a Gmail.
Yeah, it's just a Gmail.
Okay.
Yeah.
You rebel.
I've had that email since before I came to Keller, so just
Got it.
easier. Jessica, you good? Anything?
I think I'm good. Heather stays so busy, it's my head spins sometimes, but
Yeah.
I think I'm good. I appreciate you asking.
Yeah. Have you run into anything that maybe you just want to touch on a little bit or any
Well,
challenge?
I was trying to think, and the only thing that we seem to be having a real issue with is the compliance docs for closing, the walkthrough and the hold harmless.
Yeah.
We typically send those to title to be included in the title packet. Well,
Yeah.
our preferred company is obviously not always the closing company.
Right.
And so they get left out quite frequently. And then it's very hard to backtrack to the buyer or the seller and be like, hey, these got left out at title, but they have to be signed. And so I think that's maybe the only hurdle that we have right now. I don't know, is there a different process or a better way to get these signed or what?
Do you send them when you send the contract in the beginning?
I do.
So
And then I've
maybe-
actually just started like resending them this week
yeah.
as like a refresher.
Yeah, that's what I would do is just send them at the very end and say, hey, please don't forget to include these in the closing package. And I would do it probably 3 or 4 days before closing, because if it's a mail out, then they have to include that in the mailed out package also.
Right.
Yeah. And then just make sure they respond that they've received it. That way, if it comes back that they don't have it in there, you can know that it's not on you.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah, we have that challenge too. And I used to take the final walkthrough and hold harmless to the final walkthrough and have them sign it, but the seller has to sign it too. So it's just easier for the title company to include it in all of their documents.
Right.
So what she's talking about is sending it with the contract and the contact sheet, the title work order that we do, just send all of it together in one big email. That way it's in their package, in their folder already for the file. All right. We good? Okay. Thank y'all so much for coming and asking questions.
Thank you.
All right, in this thing.